Hello, my dear students. I welcome you to the brand new chapter, Quadrilaterals. I have drawn a quadrilateral here. Any four-sided closed figure is called a quadrilateral. Closed four-sided figure. So here I have taken the quadrilateral LMNR. You can name a quadrilateral clockwise direction or in anti-clockwise direction. Either LMNR or LRNM. Okay, so I have written the name of quadrilateral as quadrilateral LMNR. Now, which are the opposite sides of this quadrilateral? The opposite sides are side LM, side RN. Okay. Next pair is side LR. LR's opposite is side MN, or you can write it as NM. Okay. Now the pair of opposite angles of this quadrilateral are opposite angles. Let me highlight it. This angle L's opposite angle is N. So how will you write it? Angle, see to it that L comes in middle. Okay. RLM, angle RLM, and angle, the opposite angle is RNM. RNM. Now the next pair of opposite angles are this angle, I'll put a cross. R's opposite, see in the opposite direction, is M. So how will you name it as? Angle LRN and angle LRN's opposite is LMN. LMN. Okay. So very simple, just introduction part. You should know the opposite sides, opposite angles. You already know what are the vertices, right? Where two sides meet, no? That point is called as vertex. When two arms or sides of any figure meet each other, that is, here this side and this side, they both are meeting at point L. So here L is called as the vertex. Same way, these two sides are meeting at M. M is called as the vertex. These two sides are meeting at M, discussed. Now MN and RN. N is the vertex. RN and LR. R is the vertex. So we have four vertices for quadrilateral. Triangle had three vertices. Okay. So after discussing opposite sides and opposite angles, now let us talk about adjacent sides and adjacent angles. Before I write, you make a note of it in your book. Write the name of the chapter, name. Okay. Let's talk about the adjacent sides. ADJACENT. Adjacent sides. Adjacent sides are neighboring sides. Aju baju sides. Okay. The side LR's adjacent side is side LM. Okay. Where they both share a common vertex. LR, LM. Adjacent. Same way LR, RN are also adjacent. Okay. RN and NM, they are adjacent. LM and MN, they are adjacent. Okay, so write the names of adjacent sides according to your choice. Either you can write LR and LM. One pair I will write side LR and side LM. Okay, next pair of adjacent sides, these two are also adjacent sides, no? Side RN and side MN. So if a question is asked, name any one adjacent side for side LM. You can either name it as MN or LM's adjacent is this side also LR. Any one you can name. Okay, so adjacent sides is clear. Now let us move on to adjacent angles. Which are the adjacent angles? Angles which are neighboring. That is, you can write, don't take the opposite angle, that's it. Angle R and angle L, they both are adjacent, or you can take angle R and angle N. So how will you write? Angle, one letter name you can form or three letter names. So you can write these two adjacent angles RLM angle RLM and angle LRN. LRN. Both are adjacent angles. Similarly, you can also write LRN and RNM. Both are adjacent angles. Similarly, you can write any pair of adjacent angle in this way, where they both should share a common arm. Okay, now these two angles, they share a common arm, no? RLM and LRM. RLM and LRM. They share a common arm, RL. Fine. Similarly, you can write any pair of adjacent angles. Okay. So, we had discussed enough details about a quadrilateral. Now, let us study different types of quadrilateral. Okay. So, now let us discuss the first type of quadrilateral, a parallelogram. I have drawn a parallelogram. Now, what is a parallelogram? You have to write the name of the quadrilateral and draw the figure, wherein you have to show the opposite sides parallel. So, what defines a parallelogram? How will you define a parallelogram? A quadrilateral whose, okay, you write in full word here, quadrilateral. A quadrilateral whose opposite sides are parallel. Whose opposite sides are parallel is a parallelogram. So, this is the definition. Is a parallelogram. A quadrilateral whose opposite sides are parallel is called a parallelogram. Okay. So, how will you define? You should not state the property when asked for definition. What is a parallelogram? A quadrilateral whose opposite sides are parallel is a parallelogram. Okay, now one by one we will learn the properties. You have already learned the properties in your 8th standard. A recap and an extension of that we will do in 9th standard. That is this class. Now in this parallelogram, you have to take care that the opposite sides looks parallel. Okay, otherwise it can't be identified as a parallelogram. Fine? Now this is a parallelogram. Let us learn the first property. You might be knowing it already. Let me discuss. In a parallelogram, the opposite sides are congruent. Also, for a parallelogram, the opposite angles are congruent. Now, let us prove these two statements. So, we are ready to take the first theorem of this chapter. Opposite sides and opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent. Okay. So, write the statement on the Write down the theorem statement. Opposite sides and opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent. Write this as the statement and draw the figure, same figure, and then we will start with given to prove. Okay. So now what is given? It is given that this quadrilateral is a parallelogram. See, opposite sides and opposite angles of a parallelogram. Parallelogram word is mentioned. So, it is given that this quadrilateral is a parallelogram. And we have to prove that the opposite sides are congruent and also the opposite angles are congruent. Okay. So, let's start. So, I'll write quadrilateral ABCD, that is given. To prove opposite sides are congruent and opposite angles are congruent. So, to prove side AB congruent to side DC or CD, you continue. I don't have space here. That's why I am writing it this way. Okay, you continue. Side AB congruent to side CD. And the next pair of opposite side is side AD congruent to side BC. So that I can adjust side AD congruent to side BC. All these are the things that we have to prove. Again, we have to prove that the opposite angles are congruent. Okay. So, one more thing to be proved. Angle DAB congruent to angle DAB's opposite angle is, A's opposite is C, no? So, DCB. This also we have to prove. Next pair of opposite angle is ADC. Angle ADC congruent to angle ABC. pause for a while and check whether I have written to prove correctly. These two sides we have to prove congruent, and these pair of opposite angles I have to prove congruent. This is ADC, okay, and this is ABC. Now to prove it, we need a construction. Let us draw diagonal BD. Using scale, draw the diagonal BD. Let us draw diagonal BD. So when you draw diagonal BD, you are dividing the quadrilateral or the parallelogram into two triangles. Okay? Okay, so let me write construction. Draw diagonal BD. Draw diagonal BD. Now, proof. Let us start with the proof. When I drew the diagonal, I got two triangles, right? So now I'll try to prove these two triangles congruent by some test. Lot of tests we had discussed in the last class. Okay, so by any one test, we will try to prove these two triangles congruent. And then we will try to take CACT or CSCT, corresponding angles of congruent triangles or corresponding sides of congruent triangles according to the need, according to our need. Always remember what you have to prove congruent, opposite sides congruent and opposite angles congruent. So according to our need, we will try to take the CACT or CSCT. Okay, so now you can pause and try to prove these two triangles congruent. Okay, so how will you go for it? First of all, we know that this is a parallelogram. That means, if this is parallelogram, then the opposite side should be parallel. So let us write that. Side AB parallel to side CD. Why? Why am I saying this? Because we discussed, if this is a parallelogram, what is a parallelogram? A quadrilateral whose opposite sides are parallel. So AB will obviously be parallel to CD and side AD will be parallel to side BC. Okay, this is given part. So you will write this as given. This is given. Okay. So now if these two are parallel, then automatically you remember the alternate angles, which will be congruent. If lines are parallel, then the pair of alternate angles are congruent. Okay. So now let us take two triangles. Okay, so I'll take in triangle, first triangle ABD and triangle ABD and triangle CDB. I'll take CDB. Okay, anyway you can name ABD and CBD. I named it this way. Now in these two triangles, now suppose if these two are parallel sides, then can you see pair of alternate angles, these two? Okay, so let me write angle ABD congruent to angle BDC. Alternate angles, no? ABD congruent to BDC. Reason, I'll write alternate angles. Because in the first step we have mentioned the names of the parallel sides. So now you can write directly, they both are alternate angles. So they are congruent. As you took these two pair of alternate angles, same way these two are also parallel. Okay. Same way these two are also parallel. So you can take the other alternate angles as, I have shown it with black. That is ADB and DBC. So write angle, next pair of alternate angles are ADB congruent to angle, see once again, DBC. Reason same, alternate angles. Reason is same, alternate angles. So to prove two triangles congruent, you need three things, no? Three things to prove it congruent. Two you got. What is the third thing? This common side. So let's write which side is common. Side BD congruent to side BD. Reason will be common side. Common side. So we got three things. So therefore triangle ABD congruent to triangle CDB by which test? By which test? Just see once again. ASA test. Black angle, blue side and blue angle. ASA test. So right. So these two triangles are congruent by ASA test. So once you got the triangles congruent, now we will take CACT or CSCT. How will you take it? How will you select? Now we proved that these two triangles are congruent. Now what is part of these two triangles? AB will be congruent to CD and AD will be congruent to BC, CSCT. Okay. So if these two triangles are congruent, every part of the triangle will be congruent, no? So AB congruent to CD and AD congruent to BC. Reason you will write CSCT. So therefore, side AB congruent to side CD, side AD congruent to side BC. Reason CSCT. Write the reason. Short form. You can write short form. Okay. So one part of the proof is over. We had to prove this only, AB. We had to prove this. AB congruent to CD and AD congruent to BC. So one part is done. Now again, if these two triangles are congruent, okay, if these two triangles are congruent, then obviously this angle will be congruent to this angle. Got? Correct? So I have highlighted that. So therefore angle DAB congruent to angle, what is the name of this angle? DCB. Reason CACT, corresponding angles of congruent triangle. But can you take the other two pairs of opposite angles? No, because that is not part of the triangle. No, you proved these two triangle congruent, तो हमको ये दो angle लेने को मिला. Now if you want to prove these two opposite angles congruent, then you will have to draw the next diagonal. You will have to do the whole thing again. That is, rather than drawing this diagonal, you will have to draw this diagonal. Okay, this diagonal. Then again, you will have to go for the test. You have to prove these two triangles congruent. By same test, you will be proving and you will write, if these two triangles are congruent, then angle B will be congruent to angle D. Since the same process is followed, you need not do the whole thing again. You can write similarly, we can prove that, okay, this way you will write. Similarly, we can prove that, what? Prove that the next pair are also congruent, the next pair of angles. What is the name? Angle ABC congruent to angle ADC. Similarly, we can prove that angle ABC congruent to angle ADC. So I hope you understood the proof. Very easy. You have to draw the parallelogram, draw the diagonal. Take the two triangles because it is parallelogram. So what is given? The sides are parallel is indirectly given. Okay, so please copy the proof and learn it. Okay children, so in today's class we learnt the first theorem related to parallelogram. Always remember, opposite sides are congruent, opposite angles are congruent. That is the property of parallelogram. What is a parallelogram? A quadrilateral whose opposite sides are parallel. So with this, We will meet with the next property related to parallelogram and proof in the next class. If you understood it, please let me know through comments. Till we meet for the next time. Thank you.